Good evening, everybody. It's National Master Aaron Cooper here, and tonight we've got another segment of my beginner basics content. So we'll do beginner basics for an hour, and then in an hour's time we'll move to doing some strategic chess exercises, which is a book that I have, and it has positional chess puzzles. So that's for more advanced players. But for the first hour, we're going to the very beginning. Last week we learned how to move the pawns, and this week we are going to learn how to move the bishops. Hey Thranduil, how are you? Hope you can make it out to tomorrow's sub battle. Just a heads up, guys. Tomorrow the sub battle is 6 p.m. Eastern. So I hope you can sub-simul. My apologies. I keep saying sub battle. Sub-simul. Sub-simul is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. So hope you can make that. That's the benefit that I give. One of the perks I give my subs is that we sometimes have sub-only events. Okay, and the other thing I wanted to mention before we start is you guys can check out my YouTube channel. There's some more instructional content there, and I posted a video today. Another game review of Hikaru Nakamura. So check that out. Leave a message. Tell me if you like it. Tell me if you hate it. Give me some feedback. Okay, guys. So here we go. We're going to do the first hour. Let's learn how the bishop moves. So I've got on the board, we've got 4 bishops and 2 pawns. And the bishops are a pretty simple piece. They move only on the diagonals. So this bishop can go on the squares that I've highlighted there. This bishop can currently go on those diagonals. Now the one thing bishops cannot do is they cannot jump over pawns. So this bishop can only go to this square. It is currently blocked by its pawn. White's bishop, White has a dark squared bishop that can go on these diagonals, and the light squared bishop goes on the light squares. Similarly, black also has a dark squared bishop, and those are the squares that it currently can go to. And so, similar to pawns, bishops capture, pardon me, that's not what I meant to do. That's not what I meant to do. My apologies. We need to move into, there we go. Now we are in analysis mode. Perfect. Okay. So, right, as I was saying, pawns capture on diagonals, and so do bishops. So if white played a move like this, black would gladly take that bishop. That is a free bishop. And as I said previously, you cannot jump over your own pawns. So if I tried to move my bishop here, chess.com will not allow me. I will release the mouse and you'll see that it's not letting me. Darn, that chess.com. So this bishop is currently blocked by the pawn here. And that's basically it with bishops, guys. So let's just do a quick review on how pawns move, and then we will play a custom game with pawns and only the bishops. Now, whoops. Just bear with me here, guys. We go into analysis mode. Still learning the nuances of streaming. All right, so let's get rid of, wonder if I can just pick up the piece and get rid of it. Huzzah, look at that. Oh, we need the king though. Yeah, king. All right, well, we don't worry about the king for now. We will incorporate the king at some point. Okay, so right here we've got our starting position. And we're just doing a quick review on how pawns move. So last week I showed that pawns move up 1, like this. So I will make those moves. And once they get to this position, they can't move forward, or they can't move straight. So the white pawn is blocked by the black pawn. The black pawn is blocked by the white pawn. However, as I alluded to, like bishops, if we go to this position, like bishops, they can capture on the diagonals. So while this pawn can no longer move ahead straight, it can go diagonally if there's a piece on the diagonal. So right now, this black pawn can only take this pawn. It cannot go to this square currently because that current square is empty. So if black were to play, black would obtain a free pawn. The other thing that we looked at last week is what happens when you reach the back rank. So I'm just going to play some bad moves on purpose. So when you reach here, you'll see I get a list. You reach the back rank, you get to choose what you promote your pawn to. Most people in most situations promote it to a queen. Queen is the most powerful piece, and so you get an upgrade. Your little pawn becomes a greater force with promoting to a queen. Okay, and finally, the last little detail that we learned last week was that when you're on the home square, so this is called the second rank. You see the number 2 here, and left to right is known as a rank. So when you have your pawns on the second rank, or black, for black's purposes, would be the 7th rank, your pawn can actually move 2 squares. So commonly, that's what we do in chess. We move the pawns on the home squares twice. Black can so reply, but after that, this pawn can only move ahead 1 square. So you can't move 2 squares twice. You can only do it once. And that's basically it about pawn movement. So let's add the bishops on the board. Now that we, hold on here now. Now that we've learned how the bishops move, okay, now what I did last week is I had the chat play one side. Typically the chat, well, I had the chat play the black pieces, but I think this time I'll have the chat play white. I think that's a little more natural. Okay, so this is a custom position. We're just simplifying the board until we learn how the other pieces move. So the goal here in this custom game is to try to get a pawn to the last rank. So white wants to get a pawn on any of those highlighted squares. Black wants to get a pawn on one of these highlighted squares. So okay guys, I will let you play white. Hey, Stick Try, welcome. So you guys decide what to play for white. So white starts first. And if you don't know the coordinates, we haven't learned the coordinates yet. So what you can do is just tell me the letter, and you can say 2 squares or 1 square. But if you do know the coordinates, absolutely you can tell me. So Stick Try says D4. This is the square D because it's column D, row 4, or in chess we have special names for that. This is called the D file. So columns are files in chess, and rows are called ranks in chess. So D4. Alrighty. I will follow suit and I will put my pawn up twice. So what do you guys want to do now? Now the difference between this and last week is that we have bishops. Last week we only had pawns. And for those that they already know the basics. Okay, so Stick Try says F4. You want to play the pawn to F4, or do you want to play the bishop to F4? Because you have 2 options. Which piece do you want to put there? You would have said bishop F4 if I wanted to move bishop. Okay, fair enough. I'm just making sure, clarifying. So pawn to F4. Okay. Well, I'm going to use my bishop. So my bishop can now go to any of these squares, and remember, we can't jump over pawns. So right now, the bishop cannot go this way. This is not possible. So currently, only this way is possible. So we will go bishop to F5. We're on the F file, 5th rank, F5. Hello, Ash Bryce. I got your message. I will reply to you sometime tonight. Okay, you guys in the chat, what are you going to play now? Hello, Muzz Gaming. Hello. Okay. Stick Try says C pawn to C3. Okay, you guys want to play pawn to C3? Makes sense. I'm currently attacking that pawn. You don't want to lose that pawn. So just move it up 1. Hey, we got some follows. Luxo and Anastatic LOL. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. Okay, well, after I got this guy out, I want to develop my other bishop. So on the agenda tonight, the first hour we're doing beginner basics, and then the second hour and beyond, I don't know how long I'll stream, but the second hour we're going to do some positional exercises from a book called Strategic Chess Exercises. Okay, so what do you guys want to do now? You're white to play. The goal here is to get a pawn to the queening square. That's the goal in this variant. So do you guys want to move a pawn? You guys are playing white. you don't know the coordinates, what you can do is you can say I want to move, let's say you wanted to move this pawn. I'm not saying it's a good move, I'm just saying, as an example, if you wanted to move this pawn, you could say I want to move the G pawn, because it's on the G file. I want to move it up 1, or I want to move it up 2. So we've got E3 is a suggestion. And then we've got pawn to R3. Well, you've got 2 pawns that are rook pawns. I'm going to assume you mean this one. So we have a vote for this pawn moves up, and we have a vote for this pawn moving up. Any other suggestions? Any other votes? Make your vote. What vote do you guys want? Okay, Anastatic is using the old school annotation, which I like to see. It's nice to see that from time to time. So they're actually suggesting move this pawn up 1. Okay, we've got 2 votes for moving this one here. We've got 1 vote moving this one there. And we have another vote to move it all the way up. And stick try is correct. If you move the pawn up twice, then black has the option of taking that. So E3 would allow this bishop to come out. So I think you guys have to decide between this move, which is called A3, it's on the A file, or E3. I'm going to go with E3 because we've got a couple of choices there with E3. All right. So now I have to do something with my bishop. Let's see. How about we go up 2? So remember from last week, when you're on the home square, your pawn can move up twice. But afterwards, the pawn can only move up 1 at a time. Also, guys, for you that are new in the chat, you can check out my YouTube channel. I post some game reviews and some other instructional content, so check it out. Let me know what you think. Zabul0414 has followed. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. Okay, guys, what do you want to play next? Remember, the goal is to get a pawn to the end of at the other end of the board. So we have a vote for bringing out the bishop. So bring out the bishop here. Any other votes? Yeah, we got another vote for that. Ash Bryce says pawn to G3. Okay. So these are the 2 candidate moves. Any other votes? Any other votes, guys? Remember, this is the beginner basics. It doesn't matter if you've never played before. That's the whole point of this, guys. So don't be shy. All right, Luxo says, why not B3? So B3, this is the B pawn here. And that would be B3. So we have 3 choices. we're going to have to go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a tigger by the toe. Okay, Stick Try has now changed their mind and says, yeah, let's go B3. So we have 2 votes for B3. We have 1 vote for bishop to here, E2. And we have G3 as a suggestion. Honestly, all 3 moves are good moves. So I don't think any of them are bad moves for white. So I'm going to go with a majority here, and let's go with B3. All right, so what that does, white has the option of moving this guy up, and the B pawn helps protect that square. And also this bishop has more squares that it can go to now, because unfortunately, with all these pawns on dark squares, it gets in this bishop's way. Remember, bishops cannot jump over pawns. All right, so what do I do next? All right, Ben Feingold says never play F6. So don't tell Ben. Ben's a good guy. I would not want to get in trouble with Ben. All right. What do you guys want to do now? Which piece would you like to move now, guys? So Luxo says, I kind of prefer bishop e2. So it sounds like bishop e2 is a possibility. Stick Try says move the pawn up 1. So those are the 2 current moves. Any other votes? GLHFGG8. Welcome to the stream, and thank you for the follow. All right, so we've actually got a 3rd choice. We've got the old notation pawn to knight 3. Okay, so we've got 2 votes now for moving this pawn up once. So that is currently the leader. Any other votes? Luxo likes c4 as well, so that's 3 for c4. So let's go to c4. All right. What do I want to do? All right, on guard. I move my pawn up twice. Because remember, when we're on the home square, guys, for those that are new coming in, this is the home square. These are the home squares for black. We can move the pawn up twice. We can move it once as well, but we have the option to move it twice. Afterwards, these pawns, for example, can only move up 1 at a time. And in order to capture, pawns capture diagonally. So I'm currently threatening to take the pawn on f4 here. Stick Try says push the pawn up. Push the pawn up. It gets closer to the end. GLH, what are we doing here with no kings? Well, we are learning how to play chess. And one way that I do so is I simplify the game. And we first have to learn how the bishops move, the knights, the rooks, the queens. So we actually don't need the kings yet. Don't worry though, the kings will come in due time. Probably not tonight, but down the road in future segments it will. Okay, so we've got one vote for move the pawn up. We've got another vote for move this pawn up. Stick Try says, why are we playing g3? Okay, that's a fair question. Well, I mean, one thing that I see with g3 is that it does help reinforce the f-pawn. And it also gives the light squared bishop some more squares to go to. Yeah, that's right, GLH. Very good. So one vote is for this. Another vote is to move up. Any other votes? There's also bishop to a3 to control the long diagonal if we move c5 after. So if the pawn moves here, Luoxo is saying we can move the bishop here. And with the pawn on this square, the bishop would be blocked because the bishop cannot jump over pawns. So the white bishop would be safe here after the pawn moves. All right, we've got another vote for g3. So let's go with g3, guys. So g3 is a reasonable move. You're reinforcing the support for that pawn. Okay, now the goal, guys, for those that are just coming in, black wants to get a pawn on one of these squares. White, on the other hand, wants to get a pawn on one of these squares. That's how we play the Aaron variant. Dun dun dun. Okay. I'm going to move forward with my rook pawn. So now what do you guys think? So bishop to queen 2 is one suggestion. So here, threatening the a pawn. We've actually got 3 suggestions thus far. So bishop here, we've got move the a pawn once, and then we have c5 again. c5 would block my bishop. My bishop here would no longer be able to cross this. So we've got 1, this is 1, and this is 1. GLH says, well, with playing a3, I want to move this guy up next. So this guy up here. We've got another vote for pawn to c5. So we've got 2 votes for that. 1 vote for this. 1 vote for that. Any other votes? GLH says, okay, c5 sounds okay. So let's say this and this. So those are the 2 choices right now. There seems to be a lot of support for c5. So let's go with that. Okay. So that is a good move. This bishop now, before, had access to these 2 squares. However, with the pawn moving up, the bishop no longer can go to these two squares. It's blocked. So remember, guys, bishops do not jump over pawns. It's pawn-demonium. All right. That is my move. So what would you guys like to play now? I'm attacking your pawn on c5. So pawns attack diagonally. So this is now, my idea is potentially to take that pawn. Ash Bryce says, bishop right here. Golden Orion 0506, welcome to the stream and thank you for the follow. Stick Try says, hey, let's just keep going. Move the pawn up one. And we have another vote for bishop here. So bishop here has 2 votes. Any other people want to chime in? Don't be shy. More the merrier. The more the merrier, especially this time of year. We want to be merry. M-E-R-R-Y, merry, not M-A-R-Y. It's kind of hard for me to be merry. I'd have to change my name, amongst other things. All right, wouldn't C6 close the position? Anastatic says, well, it creates a pawn island, easy target for black. So Anastatic is saying that the pawn could be easily attacked by black. So assuming the bishop comes back and there's no pawn protecting it. Okay. So we've got bishop here, pawn here. Any other votes? What do you guys think? Anybody else wanna chime in with a move? So we've got another vote for bishop here. Nejmen, thank you for the follow. Welcome. Is Lee Chess better than chess.com for beginners? Well, I am a chess.com streamer, so I probably shouldn't answer that. Chess.com has lots of good resources. Maybe somebody in the chat could answer that for you, Nejmen. Not a problem. I appreciate your question. It's a very good question. All right, so we've got bishop here and pawn up. All right, guys. So I'm gonna be helpful here because I'm a nice guy. It is Christmas after all. So what happens? You have to calculate what happens if I take that pawn. What are you guys going to do? Now you got to calculate. This is actually quite a sequence. So I would take you have the option to take this one, or you have the option to take this one. So bishop d2, I take. What are you guys going to do next? Let's figure this out together. Luxio says bishop takes here. Okay. So this is gonna get spicy. I hope you guys like hot wings. So I would then take here. So what would you guys play after that move? So currently, bishop is here, my pawn is here. Bishop takes on c7. Okay. This is good, guys. You guys are doing really good with the calculation. All right. Now remember, the name of the game is to get a pawn to the end. So I would actually move my pawn up. And I have a very strong pawn here. Not only is it strong there, it's being defended by my bishop. So you have to analyze whether or not that is good for you guys. What do you think? Nejman says, chess is so simple yet so advanced. Very true. And we only have the pawns and bishops on the board. Imagine if all the other pieces were on the board. That's why this is a great way to learn, guys, is you start with the basics. You don't need the full pieces to start. Get a solid foundation down first. Luxo says, nah, we don't care about that pawn on d3. We can just move the bishop back and defend this square. Okay. So Luxo does not seem to be concerned. So you guys are looking at bishop here, takes. Now, you first looked at this capture. So we would play that. Then I said I would take here. And in reply to that, you guys said that you would take my c-pawn with your bishop on a5. Is that the best move, though? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just asking the question. Is there another move you could consider? Yeah, GL, that's exactly the question I'm asking. Do you have to take this pawn? Could you play something else? Hey, GK! Welcome to the stream, GK. Well, one idea is that with my pawn here, you guys could always just take the pawn back. So you guys have a couple of options there. So let's go bishop up here. And you guys are going to have to make a decision. Now, I am going to take that guy. I'm going to take it and go, as Russell Peters would say. If you guys are familiar with Russell Peters. Take it and go. So, GK advocates for this. Anybody else have any other moves, or are we comfortable with bishop takes pawn? Do we have consensus over that? Ah, we've got another suggested move. So there's bishop takes. There's also taking the pawn. So if you take this pawn, bishop could take back. Do you really want to help bring my bishop out? That's the question you need to ask. Not only does it bring my bishop out, but then my bishop starts to attack your pawn here, and I think that would be helping me. But you have to assess that. Luxo says, all this just tells me how pivotal and tricky endgame scenarios can be. Yes, there's a lot to endgames. Chess is very rich. So we've got two people advocating for bishop takes, and we have one vote for d takes. Any other votes? This is great, guys. Appreciate you guys appreciate it for you guys to chime in and participate. Okay, so Anastatic says, S. Keats. How you doing, S. Keats? S. Keats also wants to play this move. And Anastatic has said that it's okay to develop my bishop because there are two connected passed pawns. Well, these two guys are not, they are connected, but they are not passed. These are not passed pawns, and the reason they're not passed pawns is because this guy could potentially take one of them, as could this guy. Yeah, that's definitely a curveball, Luxo. I think that would help me. I would just take it. Okay, I think we've got some votes for bishop takes. So let's go with your bishop takes. And I'm going to take here. All right. So you guys looked at this move earlier, and there's also this move, and there's also other moves possible. So what do you guys want to do now? GK says, take the pawn. Roy002 says, A3. You mean this one here? Well, that would just let me take it. So I think there's one. Okay, we've got 2 votes for taking the pawn. Any other opinions or votes? S. Keats says A4. Aha! A4. Remember, the name of the game, to win the game, this variant, white has to get a pawn on one of these squares, black is trying to get a pawn on one of these squares. Roy002 says b4. Now things are getting exciting. So we've got to vote for a4, we've got to vote for b4, we got to vote for bishop takes, and we also have a couple of votes for this. S. Keats is now saying, very good, S. Keats. So S. Keats is saying, let's take this pawn first, then we can play b4, and maybe we can march these guys up the board. And the reason why we take this first, because if we play a4 right away, black pushes, and then black has a strong pawn, potentially coming down the board quickly. Daniel Calderon the 5th, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Roy says, how about b4, a3, and then bishop takes? Well, that's 3 moves. That's quite a... That's going to take some time. And in the meantime, I'm going to have some moves as black. So for instance, after b4, I have the option to take another pawn, or what I probably would do would push. And I could also defend this guy at some point with, say, bishop to d6. All right, so what do you guys think? a4, bishop takes, or pawn takes? Let's go with those 3 options. So what do you guys want to do? Roy says we need to stop the d4 pawn first. After that, we have an advantage. So, I'm glad you enjoyed the stream, Daniel Calderon. So pawn takes pawn. So there seems to be lots of consensus on pawn takes pawn. Yeah, I think you guys are making the right decision, because this guy, if he's allowed to go forward, that's pretty scary. That's helping me, so. Furian Sin, welcome to the stream. Luxo says, what's your opinion on playing the chess.com bots? Is there any benefit to playing against them? I would say playing chess, there's always a benefit against any opponent. So, yeah, you could have some fun, play against the bots. Now, personally, I wouldn't do that all the time. I think there's a lot different playing computers than it is humans. But if you want to play the Beth Harmon bot, or the Danny Wrench bot, or any of the other bots that they have, and you just want to have some fun and you're not doing it all the time, I think there's no harm in that. I mean, you would be playing, so there would be some benefits. Okay, I'm going to play a tricky move on you guys. So remember, bishops can move all the way on a diagonal. So I am moving there. Why did I move that bishop to a3? Why do you guys think I played that move? That is the first thing that you guys should do whenever your opponent has made a move. You ask that question. What are they doing with that move? So GK has it stopping a3. So this pawn can no longer move ahead because pawns can't move through pieces. So this bishop is currently blocking this pawn. F0K0, welcome to the stream. Thank you for the follow. Ash Bryce, protecting the B4 square. Yeah, my bishop is doing that. Anastatic says you're preventing the advance of the A pawn, and you may also attack D4 next. Aha! So I might come in here and attack it from the side. Roy002 also says taking D4. Yeah, that's a possibility. Okay, guys, so what do you want to play now? It's your guys' move. GK says, let's munch on that pawn. Grab that pawn, he says. And we've got a couple of people saying, bishop go back to C3 and defend this pawn. So those are the two moves currently up for grabs. Any other votes? GL says maybe bishop C3. I don't know. All right, guys. So you have two choices. Roy says, let's move the bishop here to protect D4 and then maybe push the pawn up next move. Okay. Ash Bryce is also saying, no, I want to take the pawn. So you guys have two options here, I think. These are your two options that you're talking about. So what's the advantage of playing this move? Well, that would be to defend this pawn. What's the disadvantage of playing the bishop here? What do you guys think the disadvantage is of bringing the bishop back? Well, yeah, I mean, black might play c5 in reply. That's true, Roy. But without looking at specific moves, I think the bishop coming back, you're using a long-range piece and putting it behind a pawn. Bishops like to be attacking pieces, and by saddling your bishop just behind a pawn, I'm not sure that's what you want your bishop to do. Because while your bishop is here, protecting a measly pawn, I might be able to sneak in on the dark squares. Look at this. I might be able to sneak over here and try to munch these guys. And your bishop would be just sitting here looking at a pawn. Now, I'm not sure this is what I would play. I would have to calculate it, but that certainly looks good. Okay, Anastatic made a good point. Anastatic says, I'm liking bishop takes pawn now. Can always go back and defend. Ah! So you guys wanted to play this move to defend the pawn. Anastatic is saying, hey, look, guys. We can take the pawn, and we can always go back one square and defend the pawn this way. That would be a much better way to do it, guys. Why? Well, you win a pawn, and also when you come back, your bishop is what they call outside the pawn. So because it's in front of the pawn, it tends to have more squares that it can go to. All Alright, so I think you guys are making the right choice, taking that. And now you guys have two really good pawns here that I have to be concerned about. I don't want them going up the board. Good schedule. Oh, thank you, Daniel. So we've only got about 10 minutes left of beginner basics. So if we don't finish the game, we'll have to call it a draw. That's okay, guys. The purpose of this is to learn how to move the pieces. Okay, so I'm going to move my bishop here, and now I'm attacking your guys' pawn. Now, what did I say last move? You have to ask yourself, why did I move that here? Well, I just told you to attack this. What's the downside of me moving my bishop here? What was my bishop doing before that it's not doing now that I moved it? It's a big hint, guys. What's my bishop doing now that it wasn't doing before? Well, what I'm trying to get at is that your A pawn is no longer blocked. And Luxo makes a good point too. With my bishop here, it was protecting b4. So by moving my bishop here, it's no longer protecting b4, and it's no longer preventing the A pawn from moving forward. Okay, so you guys want to protect that pawn. That makes sense. All right. So now I'm coming to get you. What do you guys want to do now? Well, we've got about 100,000 people voting for A4. So let's go A4. And if by 100,000 people, I mean 3. All righty then. On guard. Now what are you guys going to do? I'm attacking this guy. GK says, we're not going to do anything. We're going to push our pawn. GK says, you can take this guy. Go ahead. Because my A pawn's going up the board. It's going to make Fred Durst happy, and it's going to go rolling, rolling, rolling. $10 points for whoever understands that reference. Fred Durst. Eom Case, thank you for the follow. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. Anastatic says, well, wait a minute, guys. Would pawn takes pawn make sense here? So you guys have an idea here of just pushing the pawn here, and you've got taking this pawn. Now remember, the goal to win the game, you guys have to get one of your pawns on one of these squares. Ash Bryce has correctly corrected himself. Yeah, b4 would not be good because then I take the A pawn. So A5. You could take this guy. I would say Anastatic, you could take that guy. It wouldn't hurt. But I think this move is strong because you're getting very close. And I have to think real hard how to stop it. Alright, well, I'm going to take a pawn because I'm a greedy bugger. I'm a greedy bugger. There you go, Luxo. The b-pawn has served us well, but we must sacrifice him for the greater good. Absolutely. That's what you did. So you guys are going all in with the a-pawn. So presumably you guys want to play a6. Is that the move? a6. All right. So let me ask you guys something. Before we commit to that move, I want to prevent you guys from putting the pawn to this square. If you guys get your pawn there, you win the game. So how, if it was my move, what move would I play to try and stop that from happening? So what would my plan be? So we've got bishop c4. We've got bishop a4. So bishop c4 is temporary stop, but you just take, I take, and you guys would get here first. So it would be close. Yeah, you guys got it. I go here, and from this square I'm covering a8. Alright, well, that piece of knowledge, do you still want to play a6? There's no rush in playing a6. Okay, Anastatic has a suggested move. Bishop to queen's knight 4, or as Roy has said in algebraic terms, bishop to b5. What does bishop b5 do? Well, now I can't play my bishop move here, because you guys would just take it. So that is the move, guys. Nice move. So now I'm feeling pretty desperate. So I need to spice things up. All right, I'm going to move forward. Now, what do you guys want to do? Roy says, let's play g4. Anastatic says, let's not worry about it. Let's just push our pawn because we want to get to the end. Orphis Flow, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Alright, so if you guys go a6, is there anything here? I take, you guys take. My pawn can move forward, but then it's stuck. If I take here, you guys just take back. If I push, then it's stuck. So you guys are right. You can ignore my move. You can just push. So I will take your pawn. And you guys have two moves that are winning here. the human move is to take back. You also would win by simply moving the pawn. You can play a7 here, because you guys get to the end first. But yeah, taking the pawn is good. And so I'm assuming you guys would want to push. And huzzah! You guys have made it. Nice job, guys. Nice. All right. So, just to wrap it up, and for those that are new here, check out my YouTube channel. I put some more educational content there. So check it out, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me that you think my channel sucks. Tell me that you think my channel's great. Just give me some feedback. Okay, so just to wrap it up, we learned how the bishops move on diagonals. So in this example, this bishop can move to these squares, but bishop cannot jump over the pawn. So this bishop cannot go here and it cannot go there. GK, is that about how you teach your class? I try to make it interactive, yes. Yeah, when I teach students. All right, guys, nice job. That was very successful. And we just reached 700 followers. So Orifice Flow was the 700 follower. So that is awesome, guys. That deserves an emote. That deserves one of my favorite emotes. Fork, yeah. Fork, yeah. Okay. Uam Case, do I do one-on-ones? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Message me, send me a whisper on Twitch.